All right, man, let's go. Let's roll them. Hey, so we're here today with my buddy Dan Porcaro. He's a serial entrepreneur and I would say IT business, technology and IT business. Dan's been a friend of mine for, boy, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 years, maybe something like that. And what an awesome dude Dan is, and love him and his wife. They're just great people. So I'm happy. I'm really proud to have Dan on this on Ditch Digger CEO, because he's a perfect example of somebody that's taken risk and done some awesome things in his life that I'm inspired by, and anybody else should be. So we got Dan Porcaro. Introduce yourself, baby.
I'm Dan Porcaro from PSM Partners, friend of Gary's for a long time. And just like you said, yeah, serial entrepreneur. Very nice to be here. I appreciate you inviting me.
Hey, Dan, thanks for being here, buddy. And I got Robbie on the line here. Robbie is one of our leaders in our business, the Rabine Group now. And Robbie, introduce yourself, brother.
Hey, what's going on, Dan? Yeah, I'm Robbie. I recently joined the Rabine Group as of the last month and a half, 2 months here. And I actually was originally introduced to Gary and Austin through Site Technologies, which was their startup that they spun out a few years back, and have been fortunate to understand the inner workings of the Rabine Group, and beyond grateful for the opportunity right now. And prior to being at Site and Rabine, I spent 4 years at LinkedIn. So if there's ever anything I can do to help you on LinkedIn, let me know.
Oh, I'll remember that. Thanks a lot. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, you as well.
Yeah, so Robbie is a very inquisitive guy, like Quentin and any of my other buddies and partners I have on this show here. And my goal is always, Dan, to get a perspective of a young mind, besides my mature. I can notice ever call me mature, actually, but they're going to start as old as I'm getting. So my older mind, right, is different from Robbie's, and I expect Robbie to kind of think from a different paradigm as he asks our entrepreneurs questions. So that's the idea, and it works out pretty well. I'm excited always to do this. So Dan, we like to start kind of from the very beginning. So our guests on our episodes, we like them to start. We love to hear about their business, where they're at today, but we like to start from the beginning and where their ideas of entrepreneurship came from, maybe, or what it was like growing up in there, and how they became who they are today. So if you want to start back, however, as a kid or wherever you want, we'd love to hear just a brief understanding where Dan came from.
Well, I'd like to say I grew up in a company that had a lot of entrepreneurs in it, but I really didn't. So I didn't get any of that from my family. I grew up in a great family, a loving family. We were super close. I had a lot of support. So if anything contributed as a younger person to where I find myself today, would probably be all that support and everything that I had growing up. Had a great family, great childhood, and 2 great parents. So have great experience growing up, but no entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't really anything from that. It was, that feeling of entrepreneurship really came just from a very young age. It was more so less wanting to own my own business and more just being comfortable being in charge, and almost to the point of being uncomfortable as I got older, not being in charge. Mm-hmm. And not being able to kind of lead. And that was kind of the feeling that I remember most, as a younger person.
So basically control freak at a very young age, as you're saying.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I don't know if it's control freak or if it was just a comfort level of wanting to, just kind of own things and kind of take control, lead. I remember being young, working in this pizza restaurant that I worked in. And I made, super, super good friends there, really friends I still have today, right? 40 years later. But they were just wonderful. But I was always trying to make things better in that restaurant and always trying to help them. And they would let me. I'd be like, hey, what if we did a advertisement in the paper for this? And they're like, yeah, why not go ahead and you can develop it. And so I would do things like that, right? I was always kind of comfortable trying to be in charge or to try to make things better or to make things grow. And those were some of my earliest thoughts about, owning a business, right? I didn't know I wanted to own a business. I just felt more comfortable with, that feeling of kind of trying to take a lead.
Sure.
So
awesome. And so did you do anything, so pizza place, what other businesses were you involved in, or where'd you work or whatever as a kid, so through high school, college, whatever?
Oh my gosh. So I would say working, different places. I even worked at McDonald's when I was really young, but I worked at that pizza place like all through high school and then through college as well. And that became literally like a second family to me. Those people were, super close. I was close to the owners. It was a man and wife who owned it. And I was close to all their children. I was close to their cousins. I was really like part of the family. So I stayed there kind of for better or for worse, because they were like family, right? So really up until I got my first job out of college. So that was really where I kind of gained a little bit of business skill, but good memories, good friendships.
Cool. So
yeah, still friends with them today. The kids now.
Awesome. And then so you went to college. Where'd you go to college, Dan? And
I went to Northern Illinois, Huskies. Still got a good football team. So I went to Northern, and that was stayed in close in DeKalb. They had a good business school, and I knew I wanted to do something in business, so that was generally why I went there.
When you were at Northern, did a friend of mine, Tim Terrell, did he play there as a quarterback? And or was you like a few years ahead of you? I think he's probably a few years older.
A little bit ahead of me.
Yeah, Timmy T is a great buddy of mine. He was the quarterback there. I think the first quarterback to bring him to a bowl win back then.
Yeah, so that was definitely after I was out, or maybe a little bit before.
No, right before.
It was before. Yeah, I remember they had a bowl win a few years before I got there.
Yeah,
so you're right.
Someday you got to meet Timmy Terrell. I call him Timmy T. He's one of my good friends, and you've probably been in the same parties with him at my house or whatever. But you love him. He's a cool guy. So okay, so Northern, what'd you learn there, and what was your what'd you take away from Northern that took you to the next step in your life?
Well, I started with a computer science major, and I realized after a while that just was not me. I liked computer science, but I didn't want to be like a developer or an operational type person. So I switched just in time, my junior year, and I got accepted into College of Business, and I switched to business and marketing in general. So I was very fortunate to have picked the right thing. I didn't have the mentorship of, someone who had good experience in business saying, this is really where you should go. So I was just lucky, right? So I picked marketing because I looked at the courses and they all interested me. And it turned out that was the right thing for me. I learned the right things and I was comfortable with that major. And so that's what I did, marketing major at Northern.
What was your first opportunity out of Northern?
So out of Northern, my first opportunity was at a computer supply company. Back then, people used to order all sorts of computer supplies for a lot of mainframes and mini computers. There's really not a lot of networks going on then. Networking was still like a earlier type technology that was really just catching on. And then I left there after about 4 or 5 months, and I went to a consulting company that really kind of changed my career. And they did networks. They were setting up networks for companies. And that was still when companies were saying, what's a network? And they were, the owner was a young guy. He's still a good friend of mine. I literally talked to him last week. So we've stayed in touch for all that time. I don't even know how long it is, 33 years ago. But he was a really smart guy. He was very innovative, and he saw that there was the future. So I started out with them in I think it was a purchasing agent, right? But this is kind of an example, right? I was constantly saying, hey, what else can I do? I can help you in this part. I can help you in that part of the company. And I think he was like, you're weird. You can go do it, but I'm not going to pay you anymore. I'm like, oh, you don't have to pay me more. I just want to do that. So I think he must have thought I was really weird because I wanted to help out in different areas. But I think even at a really young age, I was both interested in, and I felt that it was advantageous to know different parts of the business.
Sure.
So at a young age, I was, after taking responsibility for different things, I kind of was running the whole back office for this company, purchasing, operations, administration, and finance, even though I didn't have, wasn't an accountant, but I picked it up and I was a, young manager at a super young age. I was, I don't know, maybe 24 or something like that. And that was, I guess I kind of going back to that point, I was just comfortable leading, right? So that's how I kind of started out.
Sounds like you also you had an innate ability. I mean, some people talk about this. One tenet of success is always striving to be worth more than you're paid, right? Whatever you're paid, you're always striving to be worth way more. So you just, people look at you as a great value no matter what you do wherever you go, because you're always striving to give more than you get. And sounds like that's kind of the way your mindset was. I'm not just going to do this. I'm going to do this, this, and this, and they're gonna love me being here, and they're gonna love me, being a leader maybe someday or whatever it is, right? But it sounds like you constantly had that mentality, which is something that we all look at when we're in leadership positions. Of, wow, look at that person go, man! We gave them that one job, and they're doing these 5 jobs, right? And holy cow, what else can they do? And this person should be a leader someday, right? So that's pretty cool that you had that mindset at an early age.
It did. I don't know why. I don't know. That's just the way I was born. I'd like to say, I read this book or I took this class, but that's just the way I was built. I wanted to learn more. I wanted to advance myself. I wanted to grow my career, right? And I was willing to work hard. I would stay late after work. I would say, hey, network engineer guy, if you stay late with me and teach me about this and that, I'll buy you, I'll buy you some drinks. Would you help me learn some of this stuff? He's like, oh, sure. So I would do that, and I would, work hard, and I never asked for more money. I always felt like if I did a good job, it would just come. The money would just come to me. So that was the approach that I took, and it was a good one, right? So I quickly moved up. And I think I also realized that it was easier to kind of move up and make an impact, more importantly, like in a smaller company than it was a bigger company.
Sure.
That's what I felt. I don't know, maybe not. I'm sure you've interviewed a lot of CEOs that did the same thing for bigger companies and they moved up quickly there. But for me, I felt a smaller company was a little bit easier to kind of take on a lot of responsibility quicker.
Yeah.
So you had this young founder or owner of that company, and then how big was the company, and how long did you stay there before you left, and then where'd you go next?
Let's see. So I was there for about 5 years, and that owner he built the company up, and then he sold it, and then when he sold it, I saw all these salespeople making a lot of money, like more than twice what I was, even though I'd gotten a lot of raises and stuff. So I'm like, that can't be that hard. And I was already in sales in a previous job. So I went into sales for this new company. They did a roll-up, right? So it was my first exposure to a roll-up as well. They had bought a lot of consulting companies, about 30 of them, that were just like my friends who started this small consulting firm. We maybe had, 25 people, let's say. And so now I was part of a bigger company. There's 30 locations, and I said, hey, I want to go into sales, and they agreed to let me go into sales. And I think I was smart enough. I have no idea how I knew this, but I figured like they're not going to need me. They're going to roll up all that stuff. They're not going to be like, let's say, a purchasing guy or an accountant in everything. They're going to consolidate that.
Sure.
So I felt like I would have been out of a job anyways. So it was a good opportunity to go into sales. I went into sales, and I couldn't believe it, but I eventually, within a year, I think I became the number 1 or number 2 salesperson in that whole company.
This is the rolled up company, the new company.
This is the rolled up company, yeah.
Okay. So they're much bigger than what they were when you were, so that they got to be a much bigger company, like 5 times, 10 times the size, or what?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was a big company then. They had 30 companies. So maybe that was a $200 million company, maybe.
So it gave you opportunity to sell a lot of products, probably from a stronger company. They could
right.
probably fill the orders stronger in a bigger market, right?
Yeah. So I learned a lot about doing bigger deals and a more sophisticated sales approach. But a lot of it was the same. It was just building relationships and meeting needs and building new ones and expanding those relationships. So I was doing well in sales, but the company itself was not doing well. So that was, it became a really valuable lesson to me. I think you learn, at least I learned, like by people who do things really well. And I also learned when people mess up. So they screwed up that roll up. They ran out of cash. They kind of acted like a big company when they weren't. I later learned they didn't structure the deal very well, and they didn't have enough dry powder to withstand different things. And people left, and it was just, a lot of mistakes that I later kind of put to use. I kind of learned from those mistakes about how not to do a position and how to use debt effectively and things like that.
Yeah, a lot of probably non-competes, non-competition agreements as well. How do those work, right? And so many lessons in all those acquisitions. Yeah, how cool is that? Yeah. So many lessons you could pay to learn those in any university, right?
Oh my God, you're absolutely right. You couldn't learn those at all in a university.
Yeah. So go ahead, Robbie. You're going to say something?
Yeah, Dan. I think it's obviously unique and a compliment to you that you were a manager at 24. Not many people have the opportunity to say that. So I'm curious, having gone from being managing at 24 to a sales rep in your next opportunity down the road. What sort of values or lessons did you learn as a manager that you apply as a sales rep that maybe set you up for better success or had the foundations to at least build upon?
Are you saying what did I learn as a sales rep that would help me later in life and my later in career?
Actually, back before then. So when you were the managing at 24 within the smaller company that actually was rolled up into the bigger, where you became the sales rep, I'm interested to know what sort of takeaways that you had or lessons you learned as a manager that actually helped you in sales and moving forward in your career.
Oh, that's a good question. So I think just seeing how things flowed, right? How, let's say in a professional services business, like how an order came in and how resources were allocated and how things got billed and just the whole flow of it, I think kind of helped me, right? And it helped me to set better expectations for the client, to know what was realistic. Many times a salesperson will say, yeah, we can get that done in a week, right? But I would know better, right? And I knew our resources and their skill sets and what we had and what we didn't have. So I think that helped me. But really, this is a common trait I would attribute to my success. Early on, I don't know how I knew it. I think I said this before. I knew to be successful, I needed to be well-rounded. I knew that, to me, well-rounded means sales, management, finance, strategy, operations, right? Let's say really being well-rounded in all those areas. So by the time I went into sales, I was exposed to 4 of those 5 things. I was exposed to sales, management, operations, and finance. I was not exposed to strategy, but I kind of was, because I was exposed to a bad strategy, right? That didn't work, which aided me later on. So I don't know how I knew that, but I would tell anyone that wants to advance their career, like that well-roundedness is just the key to being a successful leader. And even today, when we train leaders and we hire leaders, we look for as much of that kind of skill set filled in as possible. And you don't often find people that are really good at all those things. And, I think we just try to work around that. But the more well-rounded it seems, the better the leader. And that certainly helped me, that being able to do it and given the ability to do it and all this authority control at a young age, making mistakes, learning for those, that helped me.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's fantastic.
And then Dan, from that job, when that roll up went bad and all that, what was your next opportunity?
So I was still there. I was in sales. I was doing really well. And then a company approached me and they said, this was a big network consulting company as well, but they were the same size, let's say, but they were more experienced. They had been around for 15 or 20 years. And they had a very big East Coast presence and a very big West Coast presence. And they wanted to invest and start a central region. So they had maybe 5 offices, between the East and West Coast. And they said, we want to start in Chicago. We have 1 employee there who's supporting just 1 Chicago client, and we want to blow it up. And so they hired me to be a regional vice president, to be part of the management team and to grow this. And I had, I was coming from a sales background and some operational background. So they took I was young, I don't know, maybe it's 27, 28. And they took a shot on me to do that. So that was my next thing. So I started that branch and region for them. And it worked out wonderful, right? So I thank God, I know that I had some good breaks and I leveraged some relationships and I closed some deals and those led to other deals. And so I eventually grew that office to, there's maybe, 40 people there. And then I opened up another office in Texas and Dallas, and there was another 20 people there. So it was super successful. And I had my own P&L finally, and I was running kind of like my own business. So I learned, I would say, the most right there. That was where I learned a lot. And
that company, was that a company still, are they still around today?
No. Like everybody else, they got sold. One of my clients actually bought that company. So one of the companies that I sold to was R.R. Donnelley and Sons, world's largest printer at the time. And they knew that printing was going to be changing, so they started diversifying and they started buying businesses. So they had this other services business and they matched us with that. They bought my company. I was a shareholder in that company, so that was my first kind of go at getting some money for equity, right? So I was part of that deal, and and then they bought us, and then they matched us with this other division, and then they did an IPO. This is when in the .com area where everyone's doing an IPO, but we had real revenue, real earnings, so that was drinking from the fire hose. I built a whole region, and then I went through an acquisition. I got some money for that, and then I went through an IPO. And then I was part of a publicly held company, and I got to understand what that was.
Wow.
So that was kind of like what happened there. So I was there for a good 5 years.
So here you're still less than 33 years old, and you've been through all that already.
Yeah, I'm trying to think back now. I'm going to say I was maybe 27 to 32. I was there, something like that, right?
Wow.
So I stayed there. Donnelley had owned it. We were a publicly held company. But then, so I was really, really close to the CEO of that company. His name is Tom Bradbury. He still has a company called Premier Technology in New York. And he was just a real mentor to me, probably the most influential mentor in my career. And we were very close. And then they wanted him gone when they did this IPO. They wanted to roll up different managers to do different things. And it was a huge mistake, but they, so they let him go. And then someone else came in and we didn't get along. And then it was just bad thing after bad thing happened. So I said, this is time for me to go. So I left that company, and the guy who started the first company I was with, that first consulting company that I said I had talked to last week, he started another company. He was really good. His name is Randy Zahora. And Randy was, I stayed very close friends with him. He was a great guy and very innovative. He's another important person in my career. And he was really good at seeing things and investing in them before they really blew up. So the first one, he invested in network consulting before anyone really did that. And then there's a product called Lotus Notes that was really taking the business world by storm. And it was really nothing. And he's like, this is going to be huge. I'm going to invest in this because I think this is really going to be powerful in business. And he was right. So he built that company, and he maybe got it to, I don't know, 3-4 million, and it was very profitable. He was doing great. And he had known that I had gone through a sale and an IPO. So he said, I approached him and we worked out a deal because he felt like I could help him build that company up and sell it, and we could all make a lot of money. So I became a partner there. I was granted equity, and that was my goal, was to help him grow it, help him find a buyer, help him negotiate the deal, and help him sell that company. So
and what was the name of that company, Dan?
That company was called Work Group Productivity Corporation. And we found a great buyer. We built it up. I expanded nationally. We opened an office in Denver, opened an office in California, I think. And I think revenues maybe tripled or something, or to 3 to 9 million. I mean, it was really, really going well. But I had learned from that previous company. I knew what a deal looked like. I knew what a deal structure looked like. I knew what a buyer would want to see in a company. So I kind of learned to reverse engineer the company. This was super valuable experience that I'd learned, and I really put it into action for Randy's company. And I knew about, EBITDA and debt and deal structure. And I knew what that company would look for. And they were looking for every single thing that I was prepared. So when they were interested in us, I mean, I had all the documents and everything ready to give to them. Right. And I was just, completely prepared. And that deal went through, and it was just a crazy, crazy good deal. And everyone was happy. I mean, I made money as a partner. There was another partner. He made money. My friend Randy made a ton of money. And it was great. And it was a good company who bought it too. They were a publicly held company, and I got along really good with them. And then they said, hey, we like you. What are you going to do? Do you want to stay? Do you want to go? I'm like, I think I want to go. I think I'm finally ready to do my own thing. And they said, well, let us fund it. We'll fund it.
How old were you? How old were you at this point? In what year? Let's say.
I was 34 years old. 34 years old. This would have been 1998. So, and I almost took the money. They were going to give me, I think, 15 to 20% of the ownership. They were going to fund it. And I almost did that. I'm like, I've gone through a couple of deals now. I got money on those last 2 deals as being equity holder. And that was, probably the toughest decision of my life, to not take that money and to use my own money. So I had amassed some savings. Always was a good saver growing up, and had these deals where I made some money. And I basically took all that money, every dollar of it, and I invested it in my own company. And I lived on nothing, right? I mean, I remember just going to the bank and taking out $5,000 to go pay the bills, or to do this and then buy food. So that was a huge decision. And, I would give my wife credit for pushing me, and my dad and my friends, my old CEO that I mentioned. both CEOs said, my friend Tom Bradbury and Randy Zahora, they both were very influential in pushing me. And I took that leap to start the company I had before this one called Project Leadership Associates. And I saw a gap in the marketplace. So I knew by this time, I knew how to buy a company, sell a company, grow a company. I saw how it was growing well. Yeah, exactly. I knew how to do it. I've seen it done well. I've seen it done poorly. I understood how to grow a company from an enterprise value standpoint to create value for shareholders. So I grew, just a phenomenally good company. It was called Project Leadership Associates. And from 1998, I had it, and then I sold it in 2012. So,
and you grew it from what to what? From nothing, of course, to
I grew from one employee, me, to we had about 256 employees, and about 50 million in revenue.
Awesome.
But I think seeing different things done certain ways, right? Done well and done, not so well. I felt like there was a gap in the marketplace. In our world, the average IT consulting company in Chicago sold a lot of product and let's say 50% product sales and 50% service sales. Mm-hmm. But I saw a gap to do what the larger companies are doing, to do all services, no product, and to bill not on a fixed fee basis, but on a time and materials basis. And now it's done all the time. But, in 1998, it was really just like the bigger companies were doing that. And my product offering was a little bit different than other companies were of that size. That was the second differentiator. I had different service offerings and
let's tell us a little bit about the differentiation, because we love talking about it, because we believe it's the lifeblood of a successful growing organization. Well, so
to start with, it was different than what it ended up, right? Because I believe that you grow companies in stages, right? Mm-hmm. So, what was my strategy at first? It was just to sell whatever the hell I could to go get my head above water and get cash flow positive. So I was always focused on earnings. I did not care about revenue. Not to say the companies that focus on revenue, let earnings come later is bad, like Amazon.com did that, right? But it just wasn't my way. It didn't suit my makeup. So I was really, really focused on earnings. So I wanted to grow a company that had enough cash flow but made money quickly. And we made money, you wouldn't believe it, but from month one, we kind of made a tiny profit in month one. Month two, made a little bit more, made a little bit more. We had, I'd never lost money in any month of my existence before I sold that company.
That's not common.
It was just, I don't know, just a great run of luck. Or I'll tell you one thing, I had awesome people that worked there, but we can get into it in a little bit. But to answer your question, how I differentiated myself, as we got a little bit bigger, I had, I focused on a vertical market. So, and then I developed it was easier to develop solutions for that market. So I understood the way that market worked and what was important to them. And I differentiated myself from fewer competitors who only focused on them. That vertical market was legal. So we were, my company became the largest legal technology consulting company doing the stuff that we did in the country. And there were, I don't know, just thousands of law firms. So at the end, I think we had about 450 law firms. And so that was one, right? Focus on legal. Second thing I did to differentiate myself is that we had a large amount of different services. So I believed that if we got into an account, we could cross-sell multiple different things. And I know that you've done the same thing, Gary, with, you do a lot of different things. You started with paving, then you do roofing and all that. And that was how I did it. I felt like I wanted fewer relationships, but I wanted to do more with them. So this was a very strategic concept that for me. I wanted to create long-term strategic recurring relationships. And I felt that if I can do a lot of different things for them, I was more valuable than if I can only do one thing.
Sure.
It's also a little bit, since I was so focused on earnings, it was also a little bit more recession-proof. Sometimes they would be done with this, one of the things that we did, but then we would pivot to something else that they did need. So we were working, it also allowed us to work with different aspects, different areas of the company. So we were working in, the accounting department, the IT department, the sales group. So we were in different areas of a company cross-selling different services. And that was another key differentiator that we had. And then the third one was we, about 2/3 of the way through, I acquired a small firm that did business strategy. Because I felt like the larger firms, I'll say like Accenture, that's what they did, right? They do business strategy work, and then they do IT work, and then also accounting. But we did, I felt like adding business strategy would get me to the CEO, and it would also allow us to cross-sell more IT services. So I acquired a small business strategy firm, and that really, really worked. I was always into building a game plan, building a long-term plan, and following that plan. You know that personally from all these years. And that, I was really able to see it in action, and that we were able to do some enormous deals. We did a deal with the Chicago Mercantile Exchange where they bought Chicago Board of Trade, and they hired my little firm to work on the integration of those two firms. It was not the IT integration, just the integration. Like, what are the products that we're going to now sell as this combined organization, and who should stay and who should go? And we competed against a lot of big firms. We had strong relationships there, and we closed that deal. They paid us maybe $6 million for that. And so we did a lot of this business strategy work as well, which helped us become even more strategic on the IT side. So in the end, it was maybe 20% business strategy, 80% IT, and I had various forms of IT. So that would be the third way I differentiate myself. So those three things were the key to my success in growing that company.
And work that you're able to get in front of the CEOs a lot more often, right, with that strategy compared to just sticking with the IT, right?
Exactly. So we had a lot of different relationships within a company, which allowed us to keep them for a long time.
Right.
The other key thing that made me successful was all the people that worked for me. We had just the best culture that I've ever seen in a company. And I know I'm saying that from a very biased standpoint, but it was just unbeatable, just fantastic. We had, at one point, there was a 10-year period where we had 2% voluntary turnover. No one left. And we were making a lot of money. We were sharing it. I had given a large majority of people, maybe 50 people, stock in the company. We were paying dividends on that. So we were sharing the earnings with them. It was just a phenomenal culture. And we had built so many great leaders there. Well-rounded leaders, kind of getting back to my other point. We built a lot of great, well-rounded leaders. Many of these people have their own business now. And we just had a great culture. No one left. We were all very close friends. And that's what I would attribute. Really, I started it, right, but I had some great people to help me really, really grow it.
So you cross-trained a lot more than most, maybe. Cross-trained a lot more.
We built great leaders. And as we got bigger, we formalized that training. We had our own management training program. And we really believed in giving leaders their, I always felt like it was silly to have someone be a leader and not give them the authority to do the things they needed to do, right? So, and I see this all the time from small businesses. They have managers, but that manager really can't make a decision, right? My managers could. They had their own P&L, their own business plan, and their own budget. And we had 6 different practice areas. And so I had 6 different practice leaders, and they were real well-rounded executives. And we built them into be great executives. And that was, I think, just the key. So I tried to build a lot of Dans in there, push down my skill set to them. I tried to mentor them, and it really worked. But I let them fail. I let them make decisions. I let them, they had, could spend up to $50,000 without approval. They could hire someone without approval. We had checks and balances in place, but I let them fail. Right. And
then what did the leadership training look like? What did the leadership training look like for your managers, Dan?
It was on that well-rounded scale that I was mentioning before. So we trained them in sales and operations, in finance, in management, and in strategy. And so they would have sessions in those 5 different areas. And with many of the people, almost all the people, we would stress 1 or 2 more than others based on what their background was. So everyone's not good at everything, so they would have gaps, and we would try to fill in those gaps with that training. And the training was good, but it was really the mentoring that came after the training. That's what really worked. I think that's where the real training happens, right? So I think it starts kind of in the classroom type training, but it was really more like mentoring and going through and say, okay, let's make this decision. What do you think we should do? I'm seeing this. What do you see? That type of mentoring, I think, was super important.
Robbie, isn't that something mentoring comes into every conversation almost when you're talking to leaders?
Without fail. Yeah, it's incredible. And I really like you were for sure progressive at the point in time where you were thinking far enough ahead to involve the strategy so you could work with the C-suite, you could develop stronger relationships with your clients. It's not an easy strategy internally for you to fulfill. I'd be curious from your perspective to get an understanding of what sort of those training materials for onboarding for all internal parties did you guys actually implement for a successful rollout of the cross-selling that your team was ultimately set up for success during conversations with clients? Well,
that's a good question. Yeah, we had regular cross-selling meetings, right? So, and we had I had a really good financial package because I'm really focused on earnings, right? So my financial package was detailed, and it went out on time every month to the entire leadership team. One of the reports in that package was a cross-selling report. It listed all our clients, and it would list, on one side all our clients, and at the top all our practices. And it would have a number in each box. Did this company buy software development? Did this company buy network integration? Did this company buy that? And if they did, how much? And I did it over a 2-year period, because you can't, if you're cross-selling, you don't cross-sell something right away. It takes time to nurture a relationship and introduce new things for them. So right. We would look at over a 2-year period, and we would say, hey, how come company ABC is not buying this? And we would talk about it. And well, I've already asked them and they're not interested. Well, is there something else that we can do? Maybe we have that seminar. Can we invite them to that? I would think it would really fit. We would, just keep talking it through all the time, right? So that was one way that we did it. But that was not the best way to make it happen. The best way to make it happen was to ingrain it into our culture. So there were 2 things that we ingrained into the culture. One, everybody sells. So I said long ago when I started the company, I cannot keep this thing afloat by myself. If you have to help me, you have to act like this is your company too. And a large portion of them, it was their company because I'd given them shares in the company. So I'm like, you have to help me. We have to work together. And we would try to find deals at existing clients or try to find new clients. And everybody has an uncle and cousins and brothers and sisters that work at different companies. And we train them to try to uncover opportunities. They didn't have to go try to sell something. They had to just say, I know that there's something going on here. Great. We'll call them and we'll give you credit for it if we close a deal there. That was a key thing. right? So that was ingrained into the culture, but we ingrained cross-selling into the culture as well. So there were those two things that were just part of the culture, and it became so strong that as the years went by, if you weren't doing it, if you weren't trying to expand a relationship through cross-selling, or you weren't trying to find a new relationship, people were like, well, what are you doing? Why aren't you helping? We got to keep this going.
That's pretty crazy, Dan, where that you'd stand out like a sore thumb if you're not doing it, where in most organizations you stand out like just shine and gleam and stand out if you do it, where in your organization you train them to do it. And if they don't do it, it's just going to be in your culture. It's just going to be noticed and seen, right? I mean, it's kind of like, so you're basically teaching them not to basically sell and close deals, but basically find the fishing holes, right? Find the fishing holes that we can go fish in, right? I love it.
I'll give you a couple of examples. So one, we had a client, British Petroleum, and we were there to do a small project, $100,000 project. And my consultant who was there overheard them say that they were having trouble with a data analytics project. And we had a data analytics practice. And he said, I don't know if this is an opportunity, but I heard them say that they're swamped, they can't do the work in this area. So he told his manager, that manager told the other, practice leader of the other group, we got that deal. That was $1 million deal.
Wow.
$1 million. So, obviously at the company meeting, we brought that guy on stage and we told everybody about it. But that was a great example of like cross-selling and how to do it. I'll give you another indication of how well it worked. We had, let's say there was roughly 50 million at the end in sales. About 13 of that came from sales. So the other 37 came from everybody else. I mean, everybody in that company sold, not just managers and CEOs. Like my HR director found deals. My CFO found deals. Everybody found a deal. And it just proliferated across the whole company.
So Robbie is actually a young leader in sales, and he's leading a bunch of our sales team right now, Dan. So what a perfect podcast for him to be a part of, listening to you and I explain it, because again, that's not common, right? It's just not common that organizations understand that sales is the lifeblood, and all of us are sales if we want to be. And if we all care about the business we're in, the industry we're in, we don't have to actually sell, but find those fishing holes, right? And sell if you like to sell. And I'm sure you guys have your subject matter experts that probably close the deals and make it easy for that person that sniffs out the fishing holes, right?
Yeah, we didn't even need them to sell. They just had to see an opportunity. They didn't even have to talk to anybody. But the key was to give them as much adulation for spotting that out as if they did close it. And I think a lot of companies make that mistake. You didn't close the deal. You just found it. Someone else closed it. No, we were like, you spotted it. If it wasn't for you, we wouldn't have had it. And we would give them bigger bonuses, and they would get, obviously very well compensated for doing that. But it was more the adulation. It was more like saying, good job, and we wouldn't have gotten it without you. And then I think that kind of helped them as a whole team gain more confidence. Well, if this guy can spot something, I can spot something, right? And we had a large amount of people who were super good at it, and then others who were just, identify things, and we would say, hey, you're just as good as the guys who can close it from start to finish.
So my challenge to Robbie now is to within about a year, I want to look back and say, holy cow, man, you've been amazing, and I've inspired everybody to find those fishing holes, right? and be part of the sales team. And the way you the award system you built, Robbie, is amazing, right? Where'd you get all that? He's to look back and say, well, remember Dan when we did that podcast? What do you think, Robbie?
Yeah, absolutely. It'd be like the Shark Tank when you follow how the companies are doing. I'm just going to follow up with Dan and say like, hey, thank you for the advice. That was incredible.
Yeah, I bet Dan wouldn't mind if you call him once in a while just to ask him what he thought about what you're doing and the structure you're building for that. Because yeah, something we always talk about, but boy, it just doesn't ever happen. It's probably our fault more than anybody else. Our fault that we do not have a system that gives the accolades we should to those that just say, hey, just so you know, I told our sales gal or guy about this lead and we hit it, right? And it was, oh, well, good job, thank you, right? But it should be a little more than that probably. Right, so that's a great lesson.
What I learned is that it's not the money that you give them that really motivates them. I mean, it's a motivator for sure, but it wears off soon. It's the recognition that goes a lot further. So if you send an email out to say, if Robbie hadn't done this, we wouldn't have got this deal, and I want to recognize him. He's doing a great job. I got to tell you, that person's going to go home. They're going to tell their wife. They're going to tell their parents. They're going to be, you can't believe it. The CEO told me I did a great job. And so that to me works better. So that's why I said it wasn't about as much a process. It was more about a cultural thing. If I literally ingrained it into our culture, and that was part of, if you define what our culture was, that was really a big part of it.
Mm-hmm. So Dan, that company, then you end up selling it, and tell us about what that was like going through that, and how that worked out for you and your teammates and the people, some of the stockholders that had some stock in it that you shared. Tell us a little bit about that.
So we kind of had sold it twice. So halfway through, we brought a private equity company in. I took some money off the table. Some other employees took money off the table. And then we grew it, much, much larger, really tripled the size after that. And then we sold it again. I asked my leaders if they wanted to keep going. I said, we can sell it. We can keep it going. I could buy out the private equity guys that are in here. I said, we can all put up some money. We could all buy it together. What do you want to do? And they wanted their money. And so that's why we found a buyer. We sold it. And we sold it to a private equity firm. And so then I stayed for a year. I did not get along with that private equity firm, and I left. And so for 2 years, I had a non-compete. So what I did for 2 years is I fell back to all that business strategy experience that I had, both in growing companies and also selling that service to other firms like the CME. And I worked with a variety of different companies, maybe about 20 of them for 2 years, on implementing good business strategy plans. And so I would focus on developing strategy plans and then helping them execute those strategy plans. And frankly, the execution part is a lot more difficult than the development of the plan. But they're both important, but it's just more difficult to execute something. And that was where I focused. I did that for 2 years. And before I started my current company, which is Porcaro Stolarek Mete Partners, we go by PSM Partners. And that's where I am right now. So I started this with my two friends, Mike Mete and Dave Stolarek. And we came together as friends to start a company, and it's been great. So Mike worked for me at my last company at Project Leadership. He literally joined us out of college, and he grew into one of our best leaders. He went from a young guy on a help desk doing help desk calls to running a whole large division. I think about a $7-8 million division.
Wow.
And so Mike is my partner and just a vital part of the company, and one of my best friends. It's like we're super close, like brothers. And then my other partner is Dave Stolarek. Dave is, I've also known for a lot longer than Mike. I've known Mike for over 20 years. I've known Dave for, I don't know, as long as I've been married. He's my wife's cousin. So I've known Dave for probably 36 years. And Dave came from the telecom industry, and he had a super high level position at level 3 Global Crossing, and he came from that industry. He was very, very good in sales, and he now is head of our sales group here. So taking all those lessons that I learned in, through the years of all these companies that we kind of went through, we were able to launch this company and to get it to grow very fast. And I think it's because I learned all those lessons. And plus I had like two great guys that are, I'm super close with. So I'm super fortunate. I mean, they're super great at business, but we're also really good friends. We love hanging out with each other. Our wives all like hanging out together. It's just been
awesome.
Probably the best experience in my career.
And that's cool.
We've had so much success as well, which makes it even sweeter. But we're 5 years old. So we just had our 5-year anniversary in January, and we went from 3 people, just the 3 of us, to, I think in January we had 73 people. So
all right,
we had good success.
What's your biggest niche market in your business today, and what's your strongest differentiator?
So our differentiator here is, so we do IT services that I did before in my career. I do managed services and network infrastructure, cloud projects, things like that, right? But I felt like there was an opportunity to do something interesting. So we have a division that is we call it our talent division, and we help find full-time and temporary help for companies. So I got the idea of, when I was at my last company, we had a CFO leave, and I needed to hire a new CFO, and my accounting firm helped me find that CFO. Mm-hmm. And they helped interview the CFO. And so that accounting firm, I think it was McGladrey or something, they really knew us, right? And they understood how we worked and what was important to us, and our reporting and our tax situation. They really knew us, right? So they were ideally suited to help us find someone, or at least interview the right person and make sure that we hired the right person. So I always was intrigued by that concept. So I took that concept to this company. I said, who can hire IT people better than us? Right. I would have my IT people interview them. I would interview them myself. We would know the right place to look. So that concept really, really worked. And 30% of our business is this talent acquisition, where we help companies hire people either full-time or, I need a guy for 6 months type of thing. Sometimes you need just a contractor or someone to work for 6 months to do a project and then leave. So we do both. And that's been our niche, right? We don't know of any other companies, I'm sure there are, but not a lot, right, that mix those two things. Sure. And that's what we do. And it became so successful that now we do it for not just IT people, but we've hired HR directors, we've hired marketing and salespeople. But I think I kind of lend on my background and my 2 partners' backgrounds to help interview and find those people as well, because we have a lot of great business background, the 3 of us. So it's worked out really well. That's our niche. That's our kind of differentiating factor. One thing that I don't want to do, unlike the other ones, the other companies I kind of build to sell, we never want to sell this company. We're going to try to bring our kids into it. My son works here. My partner's son works for us as well. And we never want to sell it. We're still very earnings focused, like I was before. But I also have no plans to expand outside of Chicago. We just want to stay in Chicago and not let people be away from their families. So
Dan, when you look at that, though, I mean, so for us, I we've only sold a few companies here or there, but for us, I believe that we always build these businesses for great enterprise value to sell. Basically, if it's a great business that people want to buy, probably means that your enterprise value, or your niches are strong, your profits are strong, right? And you don't need the owner or whatever to be part of it, right? You have to replace yourself as the main decision maker, let's say, right? So when I look at these businesses that we're building, I always want them to build them to be sellable, very valuable in a sale, let's say, for the compared to the rest of the market. We want to watch the enterprise value on a constant basis, even if we never want to sell. Do you feel the same way, or how do you look at that?
Look, I think it's great. I did it 3 times, right? I've been involved in 3 sales, and I probably bought 3 or 4 companies too. So I think it's all good. I think it really relates. It's a very difficult decision. Whenever I work with a client from a strategy standpoint, I always kind of take them through this. It's really more of a personal decision, I feel, than it is a business decision. Things will certainly change if you decide to stay and sell, or you sell half of it, or whatever. But I believe that if you are very focused on earnings like we are, and you're focused on continual growth and earnings growth, and you can take those principles and keep letting them happen and having them occur, and pushing those principles down to your management team, that company can continue to push out profits. And if you want to step away, you could step away and say, just send me a check every month, right? And
Sure.
have that earning stream. I feel like sometimes, that a big amount of money that you would get from sales is nice, but almost better is continual stream of income.
Mm-hmm.
It just gives you more choices, I feel.
So I guess what I'm looking for, when I think about this, how do you look at this? Do you look at it any different though? I heard you when you built the first few companies and were part of building those companies, you built them to be ready to sell, to be great acquisitions in a sale.
I did.
Okay, but really, is there much difference in building a company that you're never going to sell? Because you still need the profitability, you still need to differentiate strong and to create value. It's almost the same thing, whether it's short term and a sale in 5-6 years, or long term and continual value annually, year after year.
I think it depends on the company. I think that for our type of company, for professional services business, a buyer typically wants to see good earnings growth, enough working capital, and a strategy to put in place that's been put in place that will help it continue to happen in the future. So if I were going to position my company for sale, I would really, really drive earnings up, short-term earnings, where if I were going to sell it, I would not be worried about short-term earnings. I would be worried about long-term earnings sustainability and growth. So I would take some of my earnings and I would reinvest it in the business. So my business made, let's say $1 million to make the math easy, and pre-tax income. I might take 500 grand and go start something else, and not have to, spend every last dollar or bleed all that money out for myself. I would, or my partners, I would, want to reinvest it. But if I was going to sell it, I would not. I would leave it in there, and I would keep trying to reduce my overhead cost and drive earnings, and I would just be making shorter term decisions.
Sure.
To drive earnings. So that's what I would do, and that's what I did, right? But longer term, I want good, solid earnings growth. To me, I like growing companies in a slow, conservative way from an earnings standpoint. So like 15% earnings growth year over year is fantastic. I think when it's more than that, for me, I tend to see like a loss of clients and employees. So if I were going to sell it, I can only kind of supercharge it for so much a period of time, right? I'd be able to cut overhead only for so long, and to make margins as high as they can be for so long before I would certain things would start to break. So I think that's how it's maybe different. If you're going to sell it, you would make better longer term decisions for sustainable earnings growth. Cool.
Robbie, what do you think of all that?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because the short-sighted view is similar to what I know. I've read quite a bit about the stock market, that quarter after quarter, all these companies are forced to make their balance sheets look as if all their margins are standing perfectly still, and There's really no issues internally with the business. Yet then we run into a pandemic like this and we find that there's actually not a lot of cash on hand. There's a lot of internal problems that they have that are being forced because of the shareholder value that they need to portray to the public. So I agree. I think the long-term view is in the best interest of the company and ultimately the best interest of your employees. And if your employees aren't happy, then it's going to be difficult to have long-term success. So yeah, I like the way that you're approaching it.
I think conversely, if I had a business that had something that was no one else had, it was, it worked great. There was huge demand for it and they're off the charts growth, right? I might feel differently. I might forego earnings to drive up revenue as high as I can possibly get it, right? I might take on debt. I might take on investment in order to spur that. It's risky, right? Because you can always have another competitor come in and maybe do it better or cheaper. But, in that instance, maybe it makes sense to grow it, not focus on earnings and try to sell it quickly. But for my business and many businesses of people that, I know and Gary knows, long-term sustainable growth is good. And it also helps you in an environment like we find ourselves in now, right? So I'm glad that we were very earnings focused and didn't take a ton of, huge risk during this time now, with the virus and everything, but really more so in the economic environment that'll follow this. I'm glad that I took the road that.
So Dan, that leads me into another question, and something we talked about is recession-proof businesses. I mean, nothing is recession-proof in my opinion overall, but there's definitely industries and businesses that are way more recession-proof than others, right? We focus our businesses on maintenance of all different, facilities maintenance and utility energy sector maintenance, right? In the products we provide, because we think we're in better shape there, but. Even in this time now, we're going to get hurt probably because people are going to be cutting back on maintenance because of this couple, month and a half, 2 months, whatever it's going to be, that people are shut down from this virus, right? But then you see,
Sure.
a friend of mine is a leader. A couple of friends of mine are in Schaumburg actually lead one of the biggest toilet paper distribution companies in the country. They're doing pretty good right now, right?
Yeah, I bet.
And another friend of mine is a leader at Medline, a great company that sells medical supplies, right? They're doing really well right now, right? And this is a different type of environment of a potential recession we're looking at and the cause of it, right? So when I think about this, Dan, what your business also looks like one that, with great technology improvements, IT improvements, right? More work from home and more work off site. Are you guys focused on that right now? And tell us what you're doing in this crazy situation where the coronavirus shutting everybody down.
Well, it's a unique time. I've been through a lot of different things in over 30 years, but there's no playbook for a pandemic. I didn't have a pandemic playbook, so we're struggling with people, no new office. I just moved into a brand new office a week before this happened. So a great time to move into an office. So yeah, it's tough, but at the end of the day, it's from a business standpoint, it's a slowdown, right? So were we prepared for a slowdown? I was absolutely prepared for a slowdown. How was I prepared? I had a lot of cash on hand. We didn't spend every last dollar that we had. We controlled our cost. We were super earnings focused to the point to where I couldn't even tell you what our revenue was half the time per month. I can tell you to the dollar what our earnings were, right? So we were very earnings focused. The other thing that we did was we have a large percentage of our income is contractually recurring. So that's a key indicator that I watch every month. So I want to say it's, 45% of our revenue is contractually recurring.
Mm-hmm.
Those contracts can kind of go away, but we'll slow down, we'll shrink a little bit for sure. And things will be delayed, but some areas of the business will pick up. So I always felt like I like diversified set of services, because in a recession, some might be up, some might be down.
Sure.
And we're seeing that. So like our talent business, no one is hiring people right now. So that business is, went to zero. But our clients are all working from home. We're supporting them. We're extending contracts, like expanding contracts. Our contracts weren't built for every single employee to work from home for an extended period of time, but we just said, look, at your contract, whether it says or not, or we're going to cover that. And we're happy to do that. And so we're helping them be more efficient and work from home. Security is a big deal. It's not as secure to work from home.
Sure.
So we're helping them with things like that. So we'll get through it. And I think lots of experience. And actually, frankly, having two partners help me, and making group decisions has been a big plus for us as well. So
it sounds like you're not as much of a control freak as you were at 16, 18 years old then.
No, I kind of learned not to. I never thought I'd be in a partnership, but it's just been great. I mean, I get to go to work with my friends every day. We're super close, and it's
how fun is that?
Able to have people to bounce things off of, and
great culture.
Yeah, it's been great. So
you guys have core values that you live by, and that you guys display, between you guys naturally. That's part of the fabric of your organization, or no?
Yeah, we do. I mean, we try to just get everyone kind of rowing in the same direction, understand the core values from a business standpoint. First of all, what it takes to be successful, and to be financially stable. But we want to try to take care of the employees the best we can. When we make money, we share money. Last year, or actually every year, right? We gave, I think last year, 26% of our profits to our employees in bonuses.
Wow, awesome.
The year before, I think, was 25, and it's all usually around a quarter. And when we're not making money, then we have to scale back and everything. So we try to share it with them, because we never would be here without them. When you go to great leaders there too who help us.
When a company does go to sell, Dan, and you on an annual basis give away 26% of your profits, do they buy that as value and EBITDA, or do they just chalk it up as this the culture of the business, and we're not going to give you a multiple on that, on the sharing?
I don't think that they would. I mean, yeah, they wouldn't. That wouldn't be an add back. I don't think that they would say that. But what I have found is that it's very difficult to buy a professional services firm, and typically, what looks good from a spreadsheet standpoint doesn't equate well from a cultural standpoint. So, those type of things typically go by the wayside. You're like, oh, we're not going to give 26% of the money to employees when we buy your company. Well, then if they all leave, your earnings aren't going to be very good.
Right.
So I usually find that buyers, especially financial buyers, struggle understanding how culture interacts with earnings growth.
Sure.
I always felt like there was a huge link between culture and earnings growth for professional, especially for a professional services company. I think it's a little bit different for a product company.
Okay, and Dan, what I find in culture today with the millennial generation and now the next generation, what's it, the Ys? Is it Y generation's next after millennials, or Robbie? What is it, X or Y? What are we at?
I think it's Gen Z, isn't it?
Is it Z? Okay,
Gen Z, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. Z. Okay, so Z and millennials, right? I find that they want to know that the company they're working within, the business and the culture, provides value outside its own doors when it comes to giving back and engaging the community. Are you guys finding that? We sure are, and we've started a foundation years ago that, not for this purpose, but it's worked out well because those are the people that love getting involved in the foundation and participating.
We do find that, and we have charities that we support as well. We don't have a foundation or anything, or just one that we support, and I think that we're still kind of working that out. Right now, there's just a few that we do, and we get people involved. And For us, I think that kind of works a little bit better because different people just relate differently to different charities. So we had Feed My Starving Children was one that we had, and went to a food pantry and helped people that way. Or we raise money for this or that, and the company will match it. We've done that. So what we do find with the millennials and the Gen Z is that they struggle with some of the after hours type stuff. So if there's something that's charitable, but it's after hours, hard to get a lot of attendance for those type of things because they want to do things on their own and, their own life after work. So that's been a struggle for us.
Sure. Cool. So, Robbie, what else you got for my buddy Dan here?
I guess I'd be curious if you guys have thought about, I know you're a big proponent of diversifying the business, but is there any other avenues that you guys are considering looking into in the future from now, or are you guys happy with the status quo where you're at?
I think that we could expand a lot more. That's a topic that comes up in management meetings a lot. But I think we're good for right now. We will likely start another service offering, another practice down the road. But really what I think me and my two partners are thinking about is we want to start a kind of like our own investment fund, our own private equity fund to incubate some new businesses. So we've talked to some other people in the past and got a couple conversations going right now of people that want to start a business, but they don't have the money to do it, but they have the background, they have a plan. So what we would do is we would fund that business, give them ownership, and then serve as a board and leverage kind of our experience, right, to grow successful businesses to do that. So we'd like to incubate several new businesses, and that would probably be something that's of interest to me and my two friends.
That sounds really cool. I mean, to be able to use your expertise and business management and sales management, all the things you IT, all the things you do now. That's awesome. That's an awesome idea. I mean, you've got all the consultative minds you need maybe not all, but a big chunk of the consultative minds needed in any startup. That's an awesome idea.
I think we'd be leverage. I think it'd be fun too. At this stage of my life, I mean, it'd be fun to help someone else grow something great, have them become successful and wealthy from growing that, and that would make me happy as well. So we're looking forward to doing something like that.
And it'd be in all different types of businesses, Dan, or be mostly in space that you guys are really knowledgeable in, or how do you look at that?
I think it'd be in different types of businesses. We have an affinity to professional service businesses because that's my background, but I think that our backgrounds would translate to other businesses. So we're looking at different things. I mean, there's definitely an allure to doing something different than I've been doing for 33 years. So that's of interest to us as well, but we'll see. I think it really depends on the person, right? I mean, I think you're investing, I feel, more so on the person than the idea. Sure. It's all about execution. So we're looking for someone who could really execute well. And the idea is I think, secondary to that.
Interesting way to look at it. I like that. So Dan, we're gonna round her up here. And Robbie will have what his takeaways are. On the side for fun and passion outside work. I know you're a boater. I've been on your boat a couple of times. Had a blast with you and Luis on the boat. Cheryl and I. What an awesome environment that is on Lake Michigan. Are you still doing that? And what else are you doing?
We are, yeah. So we like boating. My wife Louise and I and our kids, we like boating and golf. Boating, golfing those are my two big things. I know that you're a huge golfer too. We've had some great times playing golf together.
I wish I was as good as my buddy Dan at that game. You give me a couple lessons that helped me out a few times. I know that.
So yeah, I don't know how good I am, but I enjoy it. So yeah, I've been playing golf for 45 years. So wow. I always say I should frankly be a lot better after doing something for 45 years. So
you're a pretty solid player, man. Don't kid anybody.
golfing, boating, and then once in a while at home, if I'm bored, which I've been doing lately, is I oil paint. So I do some.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't picture you as an artist that way.
Yeah.
Wow, I want to check
Not a very good
out.
one, but it's kind of relaxing. Yeah.
I want to check that out, man. You're gonna send me some of your stuff. Cool.
Okay.
Well, you know what, Robbie, what do you got for takeaways there, brother?
Yeah, I wrote a few down for us. So first, I think going back to the beginning of the conversation, I always like to sort of take it back to where we all began here is, I know you mentioned that during the years when you were growing up, there was nothing that you could really pinpoint specifically that led you to where you're at today. But I think that in itself, to me, was a takeaway, is that sometimes you just have to listen to your inner voice and trust the process that you're going down, and know that as long as you are making moral decisions and doing what's in the best interest of yourself, your family, and those around you, you'll end up in a much better spot. So a big takeaway for me is listen to your inner voice. The second is to focus on the impact, not the money, in terms of your career path that you're going down. So you want to make sure that you're as of much value to the company as possible, so that ultimately you're indispensable to them and you can be seen as a resource throughout your tenure with those companies. When it comes to the value of an organization, if you're looking to potentially sell, there's methodologies that you've used to reverse engineer enterprise value. And ultimately that leads to better conversations during that acquisition process, both for you as well as the buyer. And in this case, just a more well-oiled machine that you guys are operating today. And that really leads me to my next point, which is to be as well-rounded as possible. And the way that I've been explaining this is to treat your career as a pyramid. And when you think about a pyramid, down at the bottom, you're always going to have a base of knowledge. And as you work your way up, it'll come to a T. And that's where you're really, really specialized. But the wider the base you are, the more successful you'll become. And I like that analogy here. And I think it applies really well to strong leadership traits. And lastly is fewer solutions done better, and making sure that you're maximizing the value of your organization for your clients, and that you're seen truly as a consultant and non-dispensable. So thank you.
Oh,
I got one more that I like that I know I knew this about Dan already, but it's in the book, The Laws of Success. It was written in the early to mid 19th century. I guess it'd be a 20th century, right? In the early 1900s, anyways, it was written. It's the mid 1900s, and it was it's about a bunch of the leaders of the turn of the century. But this writer basically captured the laws of success, and one of the laws he talked about a lot was the law of being more valuable than you're ever paid for, right? And everything you do, you've got this innate ability to always be worth way more than you're ever worth, whether it's as an employee, as a young person, or your own job, deliver newspapers and mowing lawns, doing more than you're paid for, or then you're a CEO or founder of a company and you're serving customers better than anybody else, always making yourself worth more than the product you're delivering, right? I mean, it's a law that they talked about many times over, from Firestone to Henry Ford and the Vanderbilts and all these others that were the leaders of the turn of the century. So it's really, I knew that about you already, Dan, but it's such an important thing to talk about with young people, right? All you got to do is every day you're in that job you're in, strive to be worth more than you're paid for, and eventually it'll be noticed. And if it's not noticed there, you'll go somewhere else and you'll get a great job and you'll be noticed. And if it doesn't work out there, go start your own thing, and you'll find ways to serve customers on a consistent basis that they continually say, man, that product, that company, that leader always does more than what I expect, right? So that came out strong with reminded me of my buddy Dan and how you think, right? But it's a great trait that I believe is invaluable. So thanks a lot, Dan. I really appreciate you being on our Ditch Digger CEO podcast, buddy. And this will be one that we're gonna get a lot of learning opportunities for a lot of people that want to do something someday on their own.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Gary. Great to be on, and thanks for the opportunity, and good to see you again.
Thank you, brother. Good to see you again. We got to get together soon. Okay. I miss you.
Let's do it.
And when all this stuff blows over, we got to get together with the girls. Otherwise, bud, until next time, we'll see you. We'll see you soon. All right.
All right. Thanks,
So
Chair.
from Ditch Digger CEO, we're out. See ya.